Welcome to the small town scene, folks, where our hero, the rather robust and bashful 16-year-old Jimmy Mulligan, trudges through the treacherous terrain of high school life. Despite the warm embrace of his parents, Terry and Kathy, Jimmy often finds himself navigating the lonely road of adolescence as an only child. His partners in introversion, Andy and Bobby, share the dubious honor of being at the bottom of the social food chain, much like Jimmy. Our trio tiptoes down these educational corridors, like stealthy ninjas, hoping to dodge Miles and his menacing posse at every turn. But today wasn't their day. After a nightmare encounter with Miles, they make a mad dash to economics, and who do we find there? The enigmatic and gothic Adrien Collins, whose eyes are set curiously on our Jimmy. Our boy, bless his timid heart, hasn't got a clue in the world what to do about it. Cut to the chase as Jimmy's journey home transforms into an unscheduled wrestling match, courtesy of Miles and his cohorts, right on somebody's well-manicured front lawn. Miles declares, ominously, that bullying is part of the school curriculum. Oh, the drama, and kind of the humor. If you're not Jimmy, of course. Stay tuned.
Even consider leaving Jimmy alone was if he paid him $100 as Jimmy cowers defenseless. The owner of the house, Mr. Claren Jackson, Action comes to his rescue and chases away Miles. Inside the house, Jimmy and Action start getting to know each other, and Jimmy is fascinated to learn that the old man was a well-known successful boxer back in the day. Excited by the possibilities, Jimmy asks Action to teach him to defend himself, to which the old man is sympathetic and, citing that his boxing days are behind him, agrees to introduce Jimmy to the best trainer in town named Manny. Action then drives the traumatized boy back to his home, introduces himself to the Mulligans, and asks their permission to start taking Jimmy to the boxing gym. However, even though Mulligans thank Action profusely for looking out for their son and for patching him up, they fail to understand the gravity of the situation and politely refuse his offer for the boxing lessons. Sadly, a few weeks later, Jimmy returns home from school with a face full of bruises, which,
in a whirlwind of excitement, Jimmy's parents finally give in and scurry to sign him up for boxing upon hearing his request. With hearts full of eagerness, they accompany Jimmy to the local boxing gym, where they meet Manny, the boxing guru, and are handed a shiny new training schedule, set to commence the very next morning. Manny takes Jimmy under his wing, teaching him how to leverage his larger frame to pack a powerful punch. As the sun sets on another grueling day at the gym, Jimmy spills his school woes to Action. Quick on his feet, the wise old man suggests a crafty delay tactic. Promise the school bully, Miles, $200 to buy some peace for a week. Despite this clever plan, the harsh reality of the rigorous training begins to take its toll on Jimmy. Exhaustion creeps in, and a cloud of doubt over whether he could ever truly master the art of boxing and protect his friends begins to shadow his thoughts. Observing Jimmy's dwindling spirit, Manny pulls Action aside and lays it on the line. He's not in the business of half-hearted training. If Jimmy's just going through the motions, he might just have to hang up his gloves for good. But the question remains, will this be the knockout blow to Jimmy's boxing dreams, or just the wake-up call he needs?
While hundreds of passionate and talented kids request to join his gym every day, both the Mulligans and Action try to inspire and motivate Jimmy and get him the bigger picture in his tiresome training, to no avail. A few days later, unprovoked, Miles beats up Bobby at school and wants Jimmy to prepare the money, while threatening to ruin all their lives if he fails to make good on his promise. Later that day, unable to contain his newfound motivation and his eagerness, Jimmy hurried home to take his bike and ride to the gym without even waiting for Action to pick him up. There he pleasantly surprises Manny with his passion and puts in extra effort to master all that he has taught as Action and Manny observe closely. Jimmy spends the next few weeks exercising on his own to put in some extra cardio exercises and attends his training religiously, which helps him lose some weight and become a little stronger. One day at school, Miles loses his patience with Jimmy, sneaks up on Jimmy and Andy and demands his money. Later, Jimmy confides.
Picture this. Jimmy's embarking on an electrifying boxing journey, hoping to keep his nemesis, Miles, off his radar for just a tad longer. Meanwhile, in a twist straight out of a romantic comedy, Adrien pops the question, not question. She asks Jimmy to be her +1 at a friend's shindig. Jimmy, bless his heart, says yes, his nerves jangling with excitement. Cut to the big night. Jimmy's folks are all smiles, fussing over him as he gets ready. They meet Adrien and her mom, wave the kids off to the party, and throw in a classic parental reminder about curfew and making smart choices. At the party, the hosts, Betty and company, roll out the red carpet. It's a who's who of high school. Even Vinny, Mr. Cool Sr. himself, is there. Jimmy and Adrien, they're hitting it off, sipping their drinks with the restraint of saints, and, the cherry on top, they share a kiss. Ah, right? But, hold your horses. The smooth sailing hits choppy waters as one of Miles' goons tries to rain on their parade. But here comes Jimmy, channeling his inner boxing mojo. He looks the bully right in the eyes, his voice steady, his message clear: back off. And guess what? It works. The hooligan beats a hasty retreat, likely spooked by Jimmy's newfound backbone. And there you have it, a night of highs, lows, and a knockout show of courage by Jimmy. So here's the scoop. Jimmy swings back home only to find his folks bubbling with excitement about his blossoming social scene and newfound swagger. Come sunrise, they're singing praises about Adrien, the new kid on the block. Meanwhile, Jimmy, ever the tech evangelist, gifts Action a smartphone hoping to catapult him into the digital age. Suddenly, Jimmy rings up, needing a lift for him and Adrien to check out Manny's boxing gym. Post haste, old man Action chauffeurs the duo, and boy, does Adrien's jaw drop at the gym. There, she's introduced to Manny and gets a front row seat to Rosie's prowess in the ring. A true knockout who teaches Adrien a thing or two about throwing jabs, not just in the ring, but against the verbal jabs at school. Jimmy then steps up, gloves on, throwing punches with Manny, fueled by Adrien's cheers. Inspired by her support, Jimmy, with no need for an alarm, springs out of bed the next day, skipping breakfast and sprinting to the gym. Manny, spotting Jimmy's early bird antics, can't help but be impressed by his relentless drive. What a whirlwind of motivation and uppercuts.
In a bustling gym scene, Dedication drops a bombshell on Jimmy, inviting him to meet Dilla, a mixed martial arts maestro. Dilla puts Jimmy through his paces, showing him some slick, off-the-wall moves, while Manny and Action look on, marveling at Jimmy's rocket-fast progress. Cut to school the next day, where Manny and Andy find themselves cornered by a fuming Miles. Annoyed by what he sees as Jimmy's party folks pass, Miles barks about speeding up the payment schedule and shouts out a challenge for an after-school showdown. Enter Winnie, smooth as ever, who sidles up to Jimmy. Complimenting his newfound swagger and spilling the beans about Jimmy's secret training sessions, he slips in a "good luck" for the upcoming face-off against Miles. Little did they know, a snitch was lurking nearby, eavesdropping. This mole wastes no time in tipping off Miles about Jimmy's secret weapon moves. In a panic, Miles makes a shady call, recruiting none other than Glass Joe Billy, a notorious ex-con, as his muscle for a whopping $200. As the plot thickens, one can only wonder how this high-stakes schoolyard scrap will go down. Conversation with Glassjaw Billy is also overheard by another student who immediately informs Winnie without any hesitation. Winnie calls his mafia connections and asks them to come to school later that day and help him out. Meanwhile, Adrien senses the tension between Miles and Jimmy and out of fear for Jimmy's well-being calls Manny to ask him for help. However, after hearing her concerns, Manny politely refuses to get involved, citing that Jimmy should learn to fight his own battles and that he believes in his ability to defend himself after school. All the students gather around in the schoolyard, eagerly waiting to see what's going to happen. Miles and his friends arrive there early and egg on the crowd, who cheer with expectation as Andy and Jimmy show up. Miles starts by demanding the money and narrates how his ex-convict friend is on his way to the school to personally take the money from Jimmy, while Jimmy stands his ground and refuses to pay up. The fight begins and Jimmy patiently takes her. With a few strategic knocks, Jimmy gears up, channeling everything Manny taught him. The students, utterly fed up with Miles' antics, rally behind Jimmy, cheering him on as he throws punch after punch. Even Action watches from the sidelines, a proud grin plastered across his face as his protege holds his own. But just when the tide seems in Jimmy's favor, Miles yells for backup. His cronies swoop in, pinning Jimmy down to give Miles a free-for-all. That's when Bobby and Adrien leap into the fray, fueled by sheer guts. They send the goons packing with a couple of well-placed knocks, evening out the playing field. As the crowd watches in sheer delight, Jimmy seizes the moment. He lands a few choice punches on Miles, eventually sending the schoolyard bully packing with a stern warning to never mess with him or anyone else again. Striding off as the undisputed champion, Jimmy is met with roaring applause and cheers, a true schoolyard hero.